Yes, and the next company is Ascelia. Welcome, Andreas Norlin, Vice President, Research and Development. We look forward to the presentation.
Well, hello, and thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to present what we are doing at Ascelia. So I kickstart by telling you that Ascelia is a company where we have an ambition and a vision to improve the life of people living with cancer. And we do that by identifying and developing and commercializing novel drugs for indications where there are great needs in rare cancer conditions. And currently we have 2 products in our development pipeline. It's Orviglance, which is a contrast agent in global in phase 3, for which we have an orphan drug designation in the US, and we are planning towards a launch of that product in late 2023. And the other product is Oncoral. It's a phase 2 stage product. It's a tablet formulation of irinotecan, so it's a cytotoxic product, which we are going to initiate the phase 2 study this year. I will tell you more about this very soon. So the company is listed on the Stockholm Nasdaq, and from there we are quite well financed well into 2023. We have our headquarters in Malmö and also office in Woodbridge, New Jersey, in the US. Excuse me. So the way we look ahead here and the way we build the value of the company is in the short term. So this year we are still focusing on advancing our pipeline and at the same time also building the commercial capabilities. And on the little longer term, so next year we look forward to at some time point starting to sell products and also expanding our pipeline to become a more well-integrated pharma company with a full R&D and also commercial activities. And on the longer term, the ambition is to establish ourselves on the market in orphan oncology, and we look forward to see Orviglance as the market leader in the segment that we are aiming for. And Oncoral is hopefully going to phase 3, and we further expand our pipeline and development. So a little bit more about the specific projects, Orviglance, and how that make sense in the oncology arena. When you suspect liver metastasis or primary liver cancer, one of the diagnostic methods that you use to evaluate that and make decisions for treatment is MRI. And before doing an MRI examination, you need to evaluate the status of the patient and the kidney function, because if the kidneys are normal and healthy, you can continue and do your MRI using gadolinium-based contrast agents. That's the normal procedure today, and it's quite well functioning. However, the gadolinium products are not recommended to be used if you have poor kidneys. So when your kidneys are not functioning very well, there is an increased risk of severe and potentially fatal side effects when using gadolinium. It's a syndrome called nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, and therefore there is a black box warning for use of these contrast agents in this group of patients. And here is where we come in. Orviglance is a manganese-based product. It's given orally, which leads to a preferential uptake into the liver and relatively low systemic exposure that we are hypothesizing is reducing the risk for these patients. And in the future, we see ourselves as Orviglance as the preferred product for the targeted population of patients in need of an MRI, but that also has poor kidney function. So to give some feeling for what this is all about, here's an example from one of our phase 2 trials, where you to the left can see a unenhanced MRI, so there is no contrast agent, and this is a cross-section of the abdomen with the liver in the left part of the picture, in the grayish area, which looks quite normal. And the same patient, after having been dosed with Orviglance, you can see that the liver becomes much brighter, white in the picture. I can also see, and we have encircled with the orange circle, a dark spot that you didn't see in the unenhanced image. And this is an example of a metastasis that you can see when you are using the contrast agent. And this is, I'd say, quite easy to understand, but it's very important information for the treating doctor, because based on this, he or she can make proper decisions or better decisions about how to treat a patient. We have concluded 6 phase 1 and phase 2 studies, and combined, the conclusion is that we consistently see a significantly improved MRI using the contrast, Orviglance contrast, compared to unenhanced MRI. And we can find 33% more lesions. So the example you saw in the image before, 33% more in enhanced, using Orviglance compared to the unenhanced MRI procedure. And in terms of lesion visualization, so the way you measure this is when you look at the border sharpness, delineation, and conspicuity, so the contrast between dark and bright areas are highly statistically significant in all those studies. And based on this, we proceeded into phase 3. I also wanted to mention that we have compared in one of the studies the lesion visualization of Orviglance compared to one of the gadolinium-based contrast agents, and the conclusion was it was at least as efficient in lesion visualization. The phase 3 study, called Sparkle, that is ongoing, is a global study enrolling around 200 patients. We are looking for the patients with known or suspected focal liver lesions and having this condition of severe renal impairment. It is a rare condition, so we're running this globally, and we have more than 40 sites, clinical sites in US, Europe, and Latin America. And the design is a relatively straightforward, where we compare enhanced, so with Orviglance compared to the unenhanced MRI, and that means that each patient is its own control, so there is no randomization. Endpoints are, as we have used in the phase 2 before, and which is also the standard approved endpoints for the gadolinium contrast agents. So the lesion visualization in terms of how well we can see the border delineation and the conspicuity, so the contrast, how big the contrast actually becomes. For each patient, this is a relatively short intervention. There is only less than a week they are in the study, and we are expecting to have the last visit before the end of the first half of 2022. The Orviglance markets we have evaluated to be around $500 and $600 million annually, and that is for the major 3 markets, USA, Europe, and Japan. We have looked into how many patients are there with a suspected liver metastasis or primary tumors, and looking for the cross-section of those that also have poor kidney function. But very importantly for this assessment is that we have also real-world data looking into how the actual imaging procedures and how that actually occurs in the real settings, real-world settings, and also validated our conclusions with payers and experts in the area, and arrived at this evaluation. We are planning to build our own commercial organization in the US, and that's why we have an office in New Jersey. And from there, we will build an organization that we estimate to be around 40 full-time equivalents when it's fully operational. And in Europe and the rest of the world, we are looking for partners for the commercialization. So I will quickly also mention Oncoral, which is a tablet formulation of irinotecan. Irinotecan is a well-established product on the market for treatment of cancer. It's given IV as an IV infusion every third week, and that is related to some risk for serious side effects that oftentimes limit the efficacy. But with a tablet formulation, we can give the irinotecan as smaller doses more frequently, and this so-called metronomic approach has some potential to improve both tolerability and efficacy of the drug. We have conducted one phase 1 study from which we could conclude that it was well tolerated with no unexpected side effects, and the hematological toxicities were only mild to moderate, while you often see severe or life-threatening grade 3 or grade 4 side effects of this type when using the IV product. And here's an example of that you can increase efficacy, improve efficacy when you adjust the dosing regimen. So to the right, you see once weekly dosing compared to once every third week in a study with metastatic refractory breast cancer. And this is the IV product. You can see this moderate adjustment of dosing is actually having a significant effect on the overall survival. We are going for gastric cancer in this first phase 2 study, and that is based on that it is an indication with unmet medical needs. It has orphan drug designation. We know that irinotecan works in this condition, and we are going for a combination with Lonsurf, which is a quite newly approved drug for this condition or this indication. And we have good evidence from the literature that the combination of irinotecan and Lonsurf gives an added effect on the tumor growth in animal models. So the clinical trial is a quite standard conventional study where we will enroll 100 patients, and we are comparing, as I said, our Oncoral with Lonsurf against Lonsurf alone, and the primary endpoint is progression-free survival. And here we have a clinical collaboration with Taiho Oncology, which is the developer and manufacturer of Lonsurf, and they will provide us with a drug for this treatment. And depending on outcome, there is possibilities for further collaborations in this area. Gastric cancer is a good area for us to be in. We have chosen that because, as I said, there are high unmet medical need. There are orphan opportunities. It's still a quite significant market. But beyond that, as you probably know, there are also a lot of other opportunities which we are currently looking into and to see what might be a good way ahead beyond gastric cancer. To summarize, we are as of the third quarter last year, we had 291 million kronor in the bank, and the burn rate over the first 9 months last year was 30 million kronor per quarter. And our current cash position provides finances into 2023. And our targets and important milestones the coming year is to initiate the Oncoral study, to complete the Orviglance phase 3 study, and continue to prepare for Orviglance launch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andreas. And now we move on to the Q&A. Of course, you have two good opportunities here, Mangoral and Oncoral. And we very much focus, of course, on Mangoral or Orviglance and the Sparkle study. What is the current status of affair in terms of recruitment?
Yeah, well, the study is ongoing, and as we have communicated earlier, the plan is to have the last patient in before the end of the first half this year, and that remains our plan. I cannot say more than that, but we are moving ahead according to these plans.
So you're pretty confident despite the level of restrictions, even if it's easing from a high level?
Sorry,
so you're confident despite the level of COVID restrictions?
Well, yeah. As you know, the COVID is having an effect on us all, of course. But as I said, we are still operating according to those plans, and there is still a possibility to meet the targets. So, yeah, we are confident that it's possible to do this. Yeah.
Excellent. And you showed indications and clear indications in support of improved visibility, especially compared with unenhanced. And looking at the studies, that goes also for smaller lesions. What should we expect on that? I mean, especially sub 10 millimeters is very important. It's always important to discover these early on, of course.
Yes, absolutely. And MRI in general is the preferred method for the radiologists when it comes to detect the smaller lesions. We don't have any data here, but there is no reason to believe that it will not be able. Will also be beneficial for the detection of the smaller lesions.
Very good. And when it comes to assessing the potential market, because there is a clear potential, of course, and a major clinical need. So in terms of, say, CKD, stages 4 and 5 is, I guess, obvious, but there is also indication that earlier on at stage 3, there is an elevated risk of cancer that is quite substantial. Could that also be a potential market?
Well, I mean, the Sparkle trial is designed to include patients of CKD 4 and 5. So that is our main target. Yeah. What happens beyond that? I mean, there's always possibilities to continue developing and expanding. But for the moment, it's quite strictly limited to the stage 4 and 5.
Yes. And looking at the cancer patients, liver cirrhosis, is that also an interesting area? Colorectal cancer, I mean, these are all cancer types where there is risks of liver cancer as well.
Yeah, well, there is no, how should I say, I don't think we can say there is no limit of where the primary cancer is located. It is the risk, and that is based on the oncologist or the doctor's assessment, of course. When do you have a risk of finding or getting metastasis in the liver? And yeah, as you say, quite right that colorectal cancer is it's quite common that you get liver metastasis from colorectal or after colorectal cancer. So, but so I think it would be fair to assume that we will have quite a lot of those patients, yeah. But there is no limit to it. I mean, the primary tumor could be anywhere.
And we suppose that the pricing will be, of course, very relevant, but that will also depend on the Sparkle outcome to some extent.
Yes, that's true. I mean, we have to be able to demonstrate a clear benefit in order to be able to negotiate a price that is reasonable. So, yeah, it depends on the outcome.
Yes. So to finalize, Oncoral is clearly very interesting. The risk profile and argument is very convincing. And there is indication that we could see some advantages in terms of efficacy as well, especially as standard of care, you interrupt or changes the dosage quite often. So what can we expect in terms of improved efficacy finally?
Yeah, well, expect it's maybe too strong a word, but when the hypothesis we have is that when using this metronomic approach, so when you divide a larger dose and give them more frequently, there are evidence in the literature for that will have benefits on both the efficacy and tolerability of this type of drugs. And as I showed in the presentation, there is one publication on the breast cancer where there was a quite small change from every third week to once weekly dosing, and that resulted in an improved outcome. So I think we can be quite hopeful, and that this is a concept that holds, and that we can provide evidence for that it's actually works in our setting in gastric cancer as well.
Excellent, very promising. That's all we have time for today. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.